Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Adventures in Machine Learning. This week on our panel, we have Miguel Morales.
Hey, guys.
And Charles Max Wood from devchat.tv. And yeah, I'm going to shout this out real quick because we've been going for about a week now with the Dev Influencers podcast. So if you're looking to kind of be that hero in your dev space, make a difference, lead people into new and exciting technologies, then go check it out, devinfluencers.com/podcast.
Did you work your tail off to get that senior developer gig just to realize that senior dev doesn't actually mean dream job? I've been there too. My first senior developer job was at a place where all of our triumphs were the bosses and all the failures were ours. The second one was a great place to continue to learn and grow, only for it to go under due to poor management. And now I get job offers from great places to work all the time. Not only that, but the last job interview I actually sat in was a discussion about how much my podcast had helped the people interviewing me. If you're looking for a way to get into your dream job, then join our Dev Heroes Accelerator. Not only will we help you get the kind of exposure that makes you attractive to your dream employer, but you'll be able to ask them for top dollar as well. Check it out at devheroesaccelerator.com.
So Miguel, we were talking before the show about how to stay current with machine learning, and I'm kind of curious, with your full-time job and your PhD and everything else. What do you do to stay current?
Yeah, it's a good topic. And, when I teach Georgia Tech, a lot of students actually have the same question because it's really difficult. It really is. I think one of the things that I found is to really try to find a problem that you care. Something that you care about, something that is going to drive the technology as opposed to chasing technologies. Because the problem is technologies change, right. I'm going to say there's something new always coming out every month. And if you're going to be, trying to catch up to the research of, 100 researchers, then you're going to have a really hard time. But if you are just, trying to apply technology to certain problems, and also try to read papers from the same people, you have a better time at understanding an area good, well enough so that you quote unquote stay current.
Yep, absolutely. This is one of the things that I recommend to people. I put it in my book on how to find a job. I put it into several of the podcasts. Yeah, it's this learning journey, and it's okay. Where do you want to end up? What do you have to learn to get there? And then, pick that topic and then go as deep as you need to in order to learn it. And so I love that approach. I love the idea of just, what's one area, right? What's one thing? Because, moving, but you can move on to that next and pick up, more or less where you would have left off before. And you're not really that far behind. Things move quickly, but, they generally don't move so quickly that if you bone up on an area that you really need to understand for a few weeks to even a few months, that you're not going to be so far behind that you can't catch up on the other area if you have to.
Yeah, and I think the challenge is that too. At one point you need to realize that you cannot possibly learn everything that there is to learn in the world. Aww. And unfortunately, it's actually true though. But it kind of it upsets you, and sometimes you need to learn to give that other thing up so that you can pick the other thing up, right? So, and that's so important, which is, it feels like you're actually missing out. And perhaps that's a bad thing, but you need to learn to miss out in order for you to stay current. And by that, I mean to have skills that employers really want to hire, right? Because employers don't want you to be able to do everything from accounting to, business development to technology, unless it's my boss, but that's another story. No, that's a joke. That's a joke. This is public.
Don't hurt me, boss. Don't hurt me.
Right. It was a joke, I promise. No, but in some roles you are asked, you are required to do all those things, but for the most part, that's really not what is expected from a human, right? You're expected to be good at something. And sure, you can, defend yourself in other areas. But that, to me, I think it's something a lot of people have trouble with. To find that it's okay to say, I'm not good at that. Let somebody else handle it.
Yeah, it is true. And it's especially true for people who are as capable as most software folks are. Right. And so you kind of get into a position. I think the further down this road you get into a position where you start to realize, yeah, I can't do it all. Somebody else has to do the DevOps. Somebody else has to do some of the other programming. Somebody else has to do some of these other pieces. So then it's down to, so what part do I want to play, right? And then figuring out what you need to know in order to play that part, right?
It is
And
exactly
that may also mean, though, that if you want to play that part and they don't have a place for you to play that part in your current company, it may mean that you move. But at the end of the day, I think people being deliberate about their career in that way is actually a healthy thing. So
Yeah. So soccer analogy coming. Imagine a goalkeeper really feeling sad that he's not scoring this season. I mean, you gotta take it, right? So I'm not going to score this season, but I can help the team. And that's exactly
Right.
the mentality that once you get that mentality, now you start excelling in your day-to-day job, right? So you actually become a good contributor because you assume that position, and now this is my role. So that's why I think that you need to chase your dreams or really go after what you really like, because you got one chance to become the best you can, right?
Oh yeah.
And if you're gonna be doing something else, like I actually try sometimes of setting up Docker containers and things like that, and that's good. I mean, I can be dangerous, right? But if I want to pretend that I'm the best Docker engineer there is, I know that that's not the case. I mean, there are many things that I'm never going to be able to do, and that's fine. That's okay. You got to give that up, right? And then concentrating, being good at other things. In my case, I like reinforcement learning, and I say, well, you know what? Let me just be as good as possible. And by the way, that makes me actually not as good in other things such as supervised machine learning, which are related topics. And so folks say, like, well, reinforcement learning is more difficult than supervised, so I assume that you're really good at supervised too. No. That's completely different path.
Right.
And yes, I do know how to train a classifier and things like that. But if somebody has a question, I usually redirect that question to somebody else, not to me. Now, when anybody has a question, they come to me for reinforcement learning, because I said, told myself, let me just get this path. I really like reinforcement learning. And that's kind of like what helps you kind of advance your career. And the end goal is really to be useful at your job, right? So if you put that in your mind, I'm a team player. I want to do some or have some role that, may be of use for what we do here. I think that's a really good approach.
Yep, absolutely. And it's interesting too, because how do I put it? So by having the reinforcement learning expert around, right, or having the supervised learning expert around, or having somebody else around that does that other thing, the other thing is together we can solve much more interesting problems, and so it's not a disadvantage. The other thing that I found over the years, being a freelancer, being on various software teams, is that often the person that is the most specialized is also the highest compensated. And the reason is because they bring in the specialists for when they can really knock it out of the park, right? They're not going to hire a specialist to just go write generic stuff, right? They hire the specialist because they really, really recognize that they need reinforcement learning and that it's going to make a major difference for whatever it is that they're doing, right? And so when they do that, then they're going to pay them the big bucks to show up and be the expert. And so it really won't hurt you to do that. It might be a little bit more work to figure out where the demand is, but at the end of the day, you will make more money being the specialized expert than you will generally as the generalist.
How do you know? Where's that position? I need to apply.
Like I said, sometimes the trick is figuring out who needs that person, right? But they'll pay for it.
Who's they? But just, you got to tell me where to apply to this job, man. I'm just kidding. That's totally true. And by the way, so with reinforcement learning in particular, the challenge is that a lot of people refer to reinforcement learning as AI. So if you go out and look for AlphaGo, they're not talking about reinforcement learning, talking about AI. AI defeated the world champ, whatever, right? And then anything that Google DeepMind does is AI. This is not reinforcement learning. So you got to get smart because AI means many things, really. But, nowadays, reinforcement learning is really referred to as AI. And it's really difficult to find reinforcement learning jobs per se, but a lot of people want the AI reinforcement learning kind of skills. So that's a little bit of a challenge to find. But yeah, it's like you're saying, you become a specialist and then you get challenges that, things like that. I don't know, like even, within my company, like I could actually move teams. A lot of folks actually need this skill reinforcement learning, but they don't ask for it as reinforcement learning. They ask for it as artificial intelligence. And you need to start becoming smart how to find those. In terms of applying to jobs, you need to realize that folks who create the job postings are not the same people that well, number one, that are going to be doing the work. So they don't have a full idea of how or what skills you really need. So oftentimes, they put they kind of start with a template, right? And then put a bunch of skills. You need C++, you need Go, you need all these programming languages. And you're like, well, yeah, maybe I shouldn't apply. Trust me, we've tried to hire folks because we need reinforcement learning skills. And for certain reasons, we couldn't add reinforcement learning to the job posting. So it is so difficult, so challenging in reality. Yeah. But yeah, and I think it should be similar with other skills. And I think for the audience, I guess the comment is that, you need to kind of do your due diligence and investigate a little bit more, as opposed to just reading the job post and that's it. So try to, if you find something that you want to do, and which is a really good way to stay current, by the way, just to have it in your day-to-day job. One thing would be to try to look at companies, right? And then don't just apply to job postings, but apply to teams, right? To companies. Hey, I like, Miguel's group. Let me go try to, join their group and things like that.
Yeah, it's funny because you're talking about this. So I wrote a book on how to find a developer job. And this is what I tell people is, first of all, I'm like, figure out what you want, right? So, I care more about benefits. I care more about the work I'm doing. I care more about the social implications of whatever company I'm working. I mean, whatever, right? People join companies for different reasons, right? And some of them really want that company that has that, loud social agenda and makes sneakers, right? Or whatever, just pulling a product out of the air, right? I'm not thinking of anyone in particular, but and then other people, it's like, you know what? I don't want to work for a company that has a social agenda. I just want to work for a company that's doing interesting work, right? And then other people, it's like, well, my significant other has had cancer, and so the health benefits are really kind of the critical deal. And then I would like a company that has interesting problems or whatever, right? And so that's what I tell people is, go find the company that's doing the thing that you want to do, and then figure out who the people are that are involved in that thing in the company. Get to know them, be their friend, and don't do it with ulterior motives, right? Just be a good person and, but be their friend and, ask them for help. Most people are willing to help. If you offer to buy them lunch and then ask them for help, people are usually a little more willing to help. And that's a really cheap way to get some really good coaching, by the way. Get the inside track on the company. And then when you show up to apply, when they're still talking about who they're going to hire instead of talking about which job board to list it on. And then somebody else goes, oh, yeah, I know him. He's a great guy, or I know her. She's a great gal, and you get in before they even list the job and do any other looking. And that's, I just gave away my book, but whatever. But
for free.
But I mean, that's essentially, there are a lot more strategies in the book, so go buy it anyway. But that's the whole thing, right? Is that, figure out what you want to do and then go find a company that's doing it. I love that. The question that I have then, and this is where people usually, when they're talking about staying current, get hung up, is there's so much stuff out there, right? There's so much stuff out there. I don't know which one I want to specialize in yet, right? I don't know if it's reinforcement learning. I don't know if it's, this algorithm or that algorithm, or if I want to build robots that are smart or, whatever, right? So how do I kind of stay abreast of the machine learning or AI community and see what's going on and kind of be able to figure out what's current or in demand so that I can kind of pick and choose some things to try them out before I kind of go down the rabbit hole on something.
Yeah, very nice question. So, I've been asked this by folks one on one, and there are a couple of things there. I would say one thing is, hopefully you see beyond the job, right, and you are able to see work as fun, and I mean it. I really mean it. Some folks, I don't know why, may need breaks from work and vacation. I usually need vacation from my family so that I can work a little bit more. No, I mean, seriously, like from
I'm
my
laughing because I have so been there.
they are not going to hear this podcast. So I can say that the all fine. No, they're not. Okay, good. No, but seriously, I mean, sometimes I just need vacations so that vacation from them so that I can do more of the fun things. I mean, to me, it's like playing with toys, right? And I hope that sometimes folks can actually get that, because if you're not, you're doing the wrong thing. I mean, the way I see it, and so hopefully you can be passionate about what you do. And I'm not saying be like me, because I mean I'm passionate for certain reasons, and this is my personality, so it's not quite exactly the same advice. But you need to be able to have fun as you have when you play PlayStation. I was going to say Nintendo. My goodness, am I not? So, but hopefully you can get there. That's number one. Now, number two would be to me that if you really don't know what to do, I recommend, some training such as the one, for instance, I did a Udacity machine learning nano degree back in the day. And by the way, this is not when I had a job. I actually did it, and I was suffering to just pay money. But at one point, I even got a scholarship from Udacity, and they were, nice enough to do that. But the point is that, they give you like a tour of all the different machine learning approaches and so on that you can specialize in, right? And then so I think that's a good one, right? So take courses that are more like a tour, as opposed to go and take the deep reinforcement learning course from Berkeley. No, that you're just gonna go crazy with with the topics in there if you go straight into one of those. So if you're not 100% sure of the commitment, then I would say just continue exploring and having fun. And then the last thing that I would say is number 3 would be find a project. Just have fun with a project, right? Some folks like music. And then so they go like, oh, how do I do some machine learning with music, right? So like I want to have a drum beat that is generated by an AI, right? So let me see if I can do that. Go ahead and try it, right? Or, some folks like stock trading, and they go like, oh, I want to create a reinforcement learning agent to, become millionaire. And that's always a funny topic. I say like, look, I would not have written a book if that was that easy. Cha-ching, right? I would spend the 3 years, as opposed to in my book, I would have spent that, creating that algorithm and making a lot of money. But anyway, just have fun.
I think the term is modern alchemy, where they're trying to create gold out of nothing.
I don't know. That is very fancy. But yeah, so those are my, I would say, 3 kind of recommendations there.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw a few things out that I've been doing lately, because, I want to keep up on this. I mean, obviously I'm working a full-time job. I'm running a podcast company, and then I'm trying to keep up on this and a couple of other technologies because I'm interested in them, and because I have podcasts on them that I show up on every week, right? And so there's a lot to do. Typically, my approach to any technology or set of technologies is, one of the first things I do is I go find a newsletter, right?
That's a good one, yeah.
And the newsletters, what I mean by a newsletter is not the typical like, oh, here's an article that I wrote, because I'm so awesome, right? It's the news roundup ones, right? So it's, hey, here's a list of blog articles, here's a list of podcast episodes, here's a list of videos, here's a list of, new innovations, press releases that are coming out from the industry, right? And the reason is because then I can kind of pick and choose through the things that look really interesting to me, right? And so then I can go after a particular topic, and I can go deep, or I can look and I can go, hey, I'd like to talk about that on the podcast, right? And ask my questions. There are things like that, right? And so that opens a lot of doors. And so if you're kind of just meandering through and you're not sure where you want to land yet, it's a really great place to go, because then if you find something that really captures your fancy, then you can, read the article, and then you can say, okay, I want to go deeper on this, right? So who is this person? What else have they written? What else are people writing about some of the terms in here? There are these parts that I didn't quite understand, so I'm going to go look them up. And that really starts to pay off. A few others are podcasts, YouTube videos. Conferences are a great place to go and get exposure to these ideas. I'm trying to think where else I tell people to go. Those are kind of the biggies, though, because that's where people are putting out the new stuff that they're working on, and that's where you can go and engage with them, right? Because if people are writing about it, they're usually passionate enough about it to talk to you about it, too.
By the way, I do. So I receive a newsletter. It's called what? Import AI. Jack Clark.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good one. So highly recommend it. And he goes over like all of the kind of the most recent, news, as you were saying. So that's a good one. Yeah. Good point.
Yep. Yeah, there are a handful of them out there. And honestly, I think when I was looking initially, I just did a Google search for like AI or machine learning newsletter. And there were like lists of them. Like I found at least 3 lists that had like 20 or 30, and some of them were the same, but they had like 20 or 30 newsletters listed in each of them. And
one
they
thing
all
that I would recommend
really
about that, actually, now that you mention it, is to actually be picky about like, where you're getting it from too. So when you have that level of competition is, so as opposed to chasing down, the rabbit hole and just try to read them all, just pick the one that you feel happy about, right?
Absolutely.
Just start to trim it down to the one that you like, and then go deep into that one for some time. And then if you don't like it, then, go to another one and so on.
Yeah, I completely agree on that. Again, it's back to that idea. Look, you're not going to learn it all.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just not. And it's frustrating, right? Because I want to learn it all. I'm one of those people, right? I want to learn it all.
Human nature.
But at the same time, I recognize that I can do the most good, and I can get the most good out of it by going deep on the things that are really going to matter.
Right.
Hey, folks, if you love this podcast and would like to support the show, or if you wish you could listen without the sponsorship messages, then you're in luck. We're setting up new premium podcast feeds where you can get all of the episodes released after Christmas 2020 without the ads. Signing up will help us pay for editing and production, and you can go sign up at devchat.tv/premium.
Something similar, by the way, to all this is to, it's another thing in human nature is that you may think that it's like, every Monday you want to start a diet, and every morning is the day that you're going to start working out and, start a diet. Similar with learning something. Don't just think that there has to be like a perfect time and the perfect environment to start reading and to start, as opposed to watching YouTube videos of, soccer. Just, watch YouTube videos on the topic that you care about, right? And have fun. Don't pressure yourself into like, it needs to be perfect. Otherwise, I won't get started, because first of all, you probably won't get started ever that way. And if you get started, you're not going to go anywhere. So one thing that I learned is learning is a matter of a little bit every day. It's almost like working out and eating right. So if you think that you can just work out, lift up all the weight in the world in one day and be done with it, that's just not going to happen. And the best way is for you to, work out daily or every other day or every 2 days and so on. And then, start gaining knowledge in the analogy, obviously. Start gaining knowledge, gaining weight in the muscle weight,
right.
Progressively, one little bit at a time. So I think that's counterintuitive, because at least, my personality, usually I just want to learn it all at once, and just not possible. It's just not smart either. So I would say that's another, probably good advice.
Yep, absolutely. And I love to your at the beginning you talked a bit about just building a project, right? I mean, there's nothing that beats that, right? Because you get to put something together, and you get to find where the problems are, or the gaps. Usually the problems are the gaps in your understanding, right? And so it's, this didn't go the way that I wanted it to. What happened? And then it's, I misunderstood how this algorithm is to be used, or this tool is to be used, or this thing is to be used. And And that it's, I mean, you just can't beat it.
Yep, yep. And yeah, and it always happens, by the way. When you start
Yeah.
implementing,
Oh
the
yeah.
solutions yourself, you're like, oh, I thought I understood. Oh, and then and if you implement it again, you're gonna get more stuff, and it's beautiful. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
If you can find a project that you care about, and then you're gonna implement solutions to it, that's gonna keep you there. It's gonna motivate you. You're just gonna want to, you're just gonna be looking forward to the nights or the weekends so that you can actually get to it and make progress and so on. So definitely.
Yep. Absolutely. One other thing that I'm just going to put out there that I didn't talk about, but is really helpful, is if you can find some kind of mentor. So, if you can find somebody that kind of get you down the path. I've been talking to people a lot about this with the dev influencer stuff that I'm doing. And what it really boils down to is they're like, well, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. And the reality is there are $50 tutorials that'll tell you how to start a podcast, but they're not going to tell you how to grow it. They're not going to solve some of these real problems that you're going to have. And that's where having a mentor who can get in and say, oh yeah, we used to do it that way, but we don't anymore. Or, hey, use this tool instead of that tool. Or, hey, there are these real issues with this area over here, so be aware of that while you come in. And it's the same thing with programming. In fact, the bonus episode that's coming out this week talks a little bit. No, it wasn't. I recorded that for Dev Influencers. I record so many of these, I lose track. But Dev Influencers will have an episode that comes out this week where I talk about that, right? Where the mentors that I had for both programming and podcasting early on were kind of at the same time. And they were people that literally just, steered me around the landmines while I figured stuff out. And so the easiest way I found to find somebody like that is to go to a users group. So if you can go to a meetup and, find somebody local that you can sit down with and go, okay, how am I doing this? What am I doing? What do I need to learn? It makes a huge, huge difference. And they can
Right.
tell you what to learn.
So you have customized and current advice when you have a mentor. And yeah, definitely. And something that, you can't beat, really.
Yeah.
I worked at Udacity for some time as a mentor in there. And I think, it's, hopefully I helped other folks, but, after my time at Udacity, I kept the relationship with some of the guys because, I guess what I'm saying is, have in mind that this is a personal relationship as well. So it's somebody that you're gonna be, working with, and hopefully it's not always like, hey, can you answer this question for me? But it's more like a, kind of a friendship, not quite perhaps, but there's some relationship there. So definitely, in that case, well, number one, choose wisely. Obviously, you're gonna have that, but also you're getting a lot more than what it looks like. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know that I could say it much better than that, but yeah, it is a personal relationship, and you need to be aware that it's going to be kind of built like that, and that the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it, and that's just the way that relationships work. And so, find ways to help them out, find ways to invest in the relationship, and not just be there, drawing out of it what you can. I mean, you should be doing that, but, also be aware that, yes, it's a personal relationship. So what you put in is what you're going to get out. Are there any other resources that you recommend? I mean, books. You wrote a book.
Yeah, I guess, I'm reinforcing my learning. So in that case, yes, definitely. I think it's a pretty good resource, and I know that it's kind of like, come on, Miguel, you're saying that your book is a good resource. No, I really mean it. I really mean it 100%. And if I had done a really bad job, I would also say I don't have any problem with that. I know what a bad job is, and that is a really good job. The good thing is that I actually bought a lot of competitors, basically, and it kind of hurts me a little bit because some of the competitors, I'm gonna say this, like, they don't even know the difference between a Q learning and a value iteration, which are like the basic algorithms. And you wonder sometimes, like, why do they get even to write a book? I guess some publishers, and I'm not going to name names here, some publishers don't really have a good standard. And it's unfortunate because prior to writing a book, I lived in this, kind of, fantasy world that if you were an author, you knew your thing, right? And if you publish books, you could buy just any book, but go buy it. It's gonna be a good experience. It's gonna be a good book. I was mistaken, and horribly mistaken, by the way. So once I started writing the book and I bought books in this topic, reinforcement learning, I realized how dangerous it is, because you can mislead people into, believing stuff that makes no sense whatsoever. Or, they train an agent and all of a sudden they train an agent but modify the reward function so that it works. And you're like,
Right.
wait a minute, that's not the point. Reinforcement learning is supposed to learn regardless of the reward function. Then you're just modifying the thing so that it works. Anyway, so I highly recommend my book because I give you what it is. So that's reinforcement learning for you. And I take you, I assume that you are a machine learning enthusiast, right? You've trained a couple of models and things like that, but not more than that. And then try to bring you from that to, coding state-of-the-art deep reinforcement learning algorithms. And I think the book does a pretty good job at that with code when it needs to, show up and I need to, drive the concepts home. But there's also little snippets that kind of give stories of whatever, just to try to relax the learning and so on. So I try to be very conscious and deliver it. I know the person reading the book is a human, and I want the human to learn, to go from something to something else. So if you're that kind of human and want to learn reinforcement learning, highly recommend that. And by the way, I actually will be getting into, so I'm actually planning to, on a YouTube channel with some videos related, basically going over some of the things in the book. So stay tuned for that, because that's going to be cool, I think.
Yeah. And I think also with books, same thing with tutorials, is I tend to go out and get recommendations from people I trust. And so that kind of short circuits a lot of that. Honestly, I'm so busy that I won't read a book unless somebody recommends it. But, it's that kind of a thing too, right? Or you can go look at the reviews on Amazon and, usually, not always, but usually those are also pretty on point, right? Because people
on
will
average,
get in.
On average, like I receive a 2-star review saying I don't like black and white pictures. And I'm like, dude, really? I don't like the rabbits in your cover.
That's not helpful. But sometimes you'll get the review that says, "Hey, this person doesn't. They've missed these critical basic techniques, right?" Or, "Hey, this. I read this book and initially I really loved it, and then once I got into the industry, I figured out that what they're teaching doesn't make any sense." Or,
right.
And so, that kind of thing will eventually, come out, but
surface. Yes.
Yeah. And there are,
I agree. On average, actually, the reviews and even my reviews, I would have to agree. Not everybody reviews the book. I actually receive emails with very nice reviews, and I'm like, come on, can you just copy and paste this on Amazon or something?
I know, right?
It's like, come on, it would be so much better. But anyway, no, but on average, the reviews kind of reflect really the content of the book. So yes.
One other thing that I'm also just going to throw out there is that, just like you said, hey, there are courses that walk you through the basics of several areas of machine learning. There are also books that do that, right? And they're usually pretty explicit in, hey, this is an intro, or, blah, blah, blah in action is kind of Manning's shtick, right? It's either a tool in action or a technology set in action, right? And you can go look also at the table of contents, and you can see, okay, they're doing this kind of machine learning, and then that kind of machine learning, and then this other kind of machine learning, and this other kind. And okay, they're going to give me an overview of these 8 approaches to solving problems with machine learning and tell me when each one's appropriate. And that way, at least I can come in and I can walk in the door tomorrow at work if they ask me about machine learning, and I can say, well, we probably want to use one of these 2, right? And then I can go and level up on that stuff.
Right. And you also have the books that, go deep into a certain area. So you have a deep unsupervised, learning type of book, and reinforcement learning book, and so on. And then you have kind of like the overview. So to be aware of that, you already mentioned that. I know I'm repeating that, but I think to be aware of that is an important thing, because, if you want to learn reinforcement learning, I wouldn't go to a machine learning book, even if that book has 5 stars.
Right.
I've read those reinforcement learning portions on those really good books, and some of them are okay. They're okay. I mean, they're good teachers and so on, but you're not, I mean, here is a DQN that is learning from Atari images. You're not learning reinforcement learning. Sorry. You're learning to use an algorithm. That's a completely different ball game. So, but as an introduction to that and then going deeper into it, that's a different strategy. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So I'm a little curious then. You mentioned one of the newsletters that you're subscribed to. I'm curious, are there other resources that you really like out there for people who are kind of just following along with what the industry's doing?
So I have well, what I do is, it's actually follow the kind of Google Scholar of a few folks that I think do good research. That's how I try to, keep track of what people are doing. And then I don't have to go into each of the papers. You wouldn't have time to do that, but at least what are they working on, right? So I see that, for instance, recently they've been working on a casual inference. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly, but casual, is that how to pronounce it?
Casual?
Yeah, inference, casual learning, and then so casual reinforcement learning too, which is a kind of interesting thing. So this is actually, recent. No, casual inference it's a topic many years back, but I've seen researchers using casual inference in reinforcement learning and other topics recently. So one thing that I do is basically keep up with what they're doing, but what I do is just read some of the titles and so on, and if I want to dig a little bit more, then I print one paper a week or something like that and then read that one paper. The Import AI is the one newsletter that I receive every time that they send one. I forget what it is, weekly or so. And then I also do the Deep Learning AI by Andrew Ng. Other than that, I really don't try not to chase anything, because it's just too much information, and then you go a little crazy, and then sometimes you need to understand, you need to let your mind rest as well from all this learning and stuff like that. So that's good sometimes too, to kind of like detach from it, just take a break, and then try to do your own thing too.
Yeah.
But those are, I would say, the resources. The lectures is the other way that I like. So during the weekends I do watch a few lectures, and usually is the Berkeley or Peter Abil, Sergey Levin, and some of those professors who are really, I think they're really good at what they do and teach very well.
Yeah, makes sense. So on the Google Scholar thing, I don't think I've actually used that before. So how does it work?
Yeah, so if you Google Scholars or Scholar, is the research folks have like a profile and say like a Twitter account or whatever. But when they release a new paper, it comes there, and then you actually can subscribe to receive an email, right? Some folks actually do similar with Archive, something similar, that in the sense that you can subscribe to some of kind of, the papers through Archive. I do that through it's Google Scholars, but basically it's the same thing.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. Cool. Well, I don't know that there's anywhere else that I'm thinking we need to go. Is there anything that you wanted to cover before we wrap up that we haven't talked about yet?
No, hopefully, it helps folks. I think it's such a common problem and a really good topic to, discuss like we're doing today. And, hopefully folks can take advantage of it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Hey, folks, I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been working a lot on figuring out how to help people become the most valuable developers on their teams, or becoming the top 5% of developers in the field. If you're looking to level up, figure out how to contribute more, get the career you want, get the career that you want that will support the lifestyle you want, then you should check out the Most Valuable Dev Summit. I've invited some of my friends across the community, people that you've heard of, people that have worked on systems that you use on a daily basis, people who have invented new ways of doing things over the years in programming, and I've asked them one question, and that question is, how do you become a top 5% developer? How do you become 1 in 20 of the best developers out there? And so we're going to go ahead and have that conversation with them in interviews on the Most Valuable Dev Summit. And you can find that at summit.mostvaluable.dev.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and do some picks then, and then we'll wrap up.
Let's do it.
All right. Do you have some picks you want to shout out about?
I should. No, I do have one. I don't know if I already gave this one, but I was talking about the Berkeley course a few weeks ago. And I actually recommended a deep reinforcement learning course, which is, it goes in the fall. So it's actually, runs from August to December. What I didn't know is that the same professor, Sergey Levin, has a course now in basically it's deep learning. And obviously he is, I'm going to say, an expert in deep reinforcement learning. So the approach, the deep learning approach that he's taken is based on control and basically, reinforcement learning related things. So I would say that is my pick this week. I don't think I've mentioned this one, but if I did, that's okay. I'd pick it again.
Awesome. Very awesome. I'm going to throw out some picks here. One of them that last night I was just I was a little burned out. So I was avoiding work and I just turned on the TV and watched a couple hours of TV, which I don't do very often actually. And I watched a couple hours of The Umbrella Academy on Netflix. It's kind of a weird show, but anyway, I've been enjoying it. So I'm going to throw that one out there. I think it's based on some graphic novels that are out there in the world. So that's one pick. And then the other pick, I've been listening to this book on Audible. And let me just give me a second and I'll get you the title. But it's a sales book. It's because I've been doing the Dev Influencers Accelerator and I've been working on the, just getting people in. It's a sales development playbook. And it actually walks you through like building a sales team and some of the roles on sales teams and stuff. And so anyway, I've really been enjoying it, just making me think about, okay, what's my sales process and what does this stuff look like? And yeah, stuff like that. So I'm going to pick that as well. All right. Well, I think we're done. So we'll go ahead and wrap up. Thanks for showing up here, Miguel.
Absolutely.
And until next time, folks, max out.
Bandwidth for this segment is provided by CacheFly, the world's fastest CDN. Deliver your content fast with CacheFly. Visit CACHEFLY.com to learn more.